Well, on the eve of the EFF's elective conference and when conversation then with the CIC, as is called by his organization, Commander-in-Chief, that is, Julius Malema. Julius, thank you so much for your time today and for agreeing to this interview. I think it's been an interesting 6 years. I remember about almost over 6 years ago, sitting down with you before you launched this organization fully. It seems that you're in a much different place to what you were back then. Things were a struggle. Getting together the branches of the EFF meetings seemed to have been quite difficult, and you're being treated almost as a bit of a pariah. In terms of your own reflections, perhaps how have things evolved for you and the organization?
Well, things are much better. It was a very difficult journey, but interesting. We now have a relatively stable organization with branches that exist in almost 90% of all IEC wards in South Africa, with all the regions launched except two, one in Eastern Cape, one in KZN. And we have leaders who are democratically elected. We've got branches, we've got councillors, MPLs, MPs. So it has been 6 years of a formative stage. And I will not even say it is completed. We are still trying to form an organization, establish its own traditions, cultures, its own discipline and way of doing things. And I'm happy that we are going back to the People's Assembly with a much, much more stronger organization, an organization that has grown from strength to strength, an organization that has had, huge impact in South African politics.
At the time, of course, even on a personal level, you were, at least the impression that was being created as one of you being persecuted. It wasn't just being kicked out of the ANC, but you're facing a number of cases in court. There were the issues over On Point that were before the courts. There were also a number of SARS issues that were before the court too. So speak to us about then being able to navigate those legal battles to, in many ways, transforming yourself into an anti-corruption fighter, as it were, over the last 6 years.
Well, you will understand that accusations were made against me. Even at the time I was forming the EFF, those accusations were there. I was going through courts, and the court said, this case must be dismissed because the guy has been here and you have never brought any case before us to prosecute him. Till to date, the National Prosecuting Authority said we'll come back to charge this guy. I've been painted as the most corrupt person from Limpopo who collapsed the province of Limpopo, but I've never been charged. They came back now, they said they're charging certain people, they will still come back to me. And I'm asking myself, a simple question. I'm not a state president. I'm not a minister. I do not own the means of production. Why, if I'm so corrupt, with so much evidence written about all over the papers and the media, why is this guy not being charged? Why is this guy not being arrested if indeed he's not being persecuted? It is now, let's talk 2011, 2012. It is now almost 8 years. With regard to issues of Limpopo alone, I've not been charged. What stops them with so much evidence, which everyone has come to a conclusion that this guy is corrupt?
But do you live then with the burden of not knowing if you'll wake up tomorrow to having the police at your front door saying, Mr. Malema, we are serving you with papers, these are the charges we're bringing against you?
I sleep expecting anything. I'm in a situation where the state is hostile to me, white capital is hostile to me. I sleep and I'm grateful to wake up alive because I know they can kill me anytime. I know they can do anything to me at any moment. But that does not cause any sleepless nights for me, because that is the type of job I've accepted, of confronting the status quo, going against the tide and challenging the white monopoly capital, and I know what are the prices for those things. So I'm really not worried. I've chosen this path.
When I listen to you speak, I can't help but think of former President Jacob Zuma's statement, some of the things that he said before the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, being painted as the most corrupt man, having these ideas about there being conspiracies to kill him, the state being against him. You're sounding a lot like him.
I may sound a lot like him, but I'm not like him because I've never applied to any court to stop prosecuting me. I've never delayed any case against me. When I was going through courts in Polokwane and the state was not prosecuting me, I made an application before the court and I said, can I be separated and be prosecuted alone? Because it looks like the state has got a problem with prosecuting other people. I'm here, I'm always here. Can I be separated? I've always wanted to be held accountable. I'm not the guy who has ever shied away from taking a responsibility. So the difference between me and Zuma is that Zuma has been delaying his cases. Zuma has been trying all tricks. Even when I was charged, there's never been a single day where I ever made an application for anything. All I've been asking in the court, every day I went, can the charges be presented so that I get questioned and we clear this thing? So I've never shied away from taking responsibility.
So in many ways, in as much as things have changed in the past 6 years then, they've also stayed the same, because while the names may be different, today it's not the Ratanang Trust or On Point that's particularly in question. You're now having to face allegations about VBS and some of the monies that got looted from there, and whether or not they've ended up in your own personal account or for your own personal benefit. Let's talk then about VBS, because there's been multiple reports around it, some investigative journalists doing the work on the paper trail and being able to trace accounts that belong to your family members that subsequently acquired property. There's a 3.3 million rand property in Limpopo, I believe, that was acquired through Santa Clara, and that was through a loan at VBS. So did you use the services of VBS? Because that's the information that's out there in the public domain.
There's no house in Polokwane with a VBS loan, what we call bond. There's no such a thing. There's no VBS money that has come into my account. There's no such a thing. Even Motaung report has got no name of Julius Malema, none whatsoever. My brother and Floyd's brothers are engaged in business activities. They do their own thing. And so they attribute their businesses to us, which is wrong.
What do you mean when you say they attribute their businesses to you?
No, they say Julius Malema's cousin, therefore, is Julius's business. The problem with all my cousins is that they've got a cousin who has got a strong presence. They are not my children. They are my cousins. They've got a life of their own. If they buy a house, it's not their house, it's Julius's house. If they buy a farm, it's not their farm, it's Julius's farm. So they've got that stigma. Even the Malemas who do not know me, they get victimized, they get isolated, they get suspected because of the surname, not because they have engaged in anything, any wrongdoing. So there's absolutely nothing. My brothers have never done any business with VBS. They've done business with Brian. They still do business together till now. And there's nothing that is going to stop them until they decide they are no longer interested in working together. They are still working together now. My brother had a business with an African company that got a tender in Joburg for cars in Polokwane in the agriculture department. It had nothing to do with Joburg. But when they were paying each other monies, they said it was a bribe for Joburg tender. But Cathy, you are not asking critical questions yourself. Say, okay, fair enough. They gave him a bribe. What did he give them in return? He gave them a tender of cars. How? Who did he speak to? What did he do to give them that tender? They don't want evidence. They don't even demonstrate evidence. They just throw a mud at you And from there, they leave you like that. There will not be prosecution. There won't be anything. Joburg investigated, by the way, which was under DA, investigated and said they can't see any link, none whatsoever. And that was the problem again with On Point. When it received a tender in transport, you must go and read the docket of On Point. Bid committee, adjudicating committee, CFO, HOD, everyone, their statements are taken. And they were all asked one question, which they never, each one received that question. Do you know Julius Malema? Yes. How do you know him? TV. Have you ever spoken to him prior before this tender? No. We actually got to know that Malema is involved with this company when it was now reported in the papers. We didn't know before. So I've never spoken to anyone anywhere in VBS, in Tshwane, in Joburg to give anyone any tender. My brothers, all of them, are in business. All of them. And they are doing very well in their own right without my intervention. I'm doing well in my politics. I chose politics. They chose business. And I'm not going to say to them, don't do business. Otherwise, I'll have to feed their children.
So then speak to us, because in particular, you said that the company associated with your brothers didn't and has not bought any property in Polokwane.
No, it has got a property.
Yes.
But not with VBS.
Sure.
Yes.
So they've bought your property.
But who?
I'm asking, has your brother bought your property?
No, not me.
Okay.
They have got, the companies have got properties, has got trucks, they are in business. They are working. I didn't buy me property. No, I don't have any property.
Do you use any properties that have been given to you by your brothers?
No. I'm in Cape Town. If I'm not in Cape Town, I'm in Joburg here with my wife. I don't have any property from my brother. Yes.
Have you bought all your properties yourself?
I don't have a property. No, I don't have a car. I don't have a property. Nothing.
So then how do you get by without having property? Who are the good Samaritans how do you have a roof over your head if you're saying you don't have a property? Do you pay rent?
Yes, my wife rents a place here in Joburg, and in Cape Town I stay in Parliamentary Village. Yes, I don't have anything. I don't have a property in my name, nothing.
And what about the companies that are associated to the various trusts that you have? Do they have properties registered?
No, my trusts have got properties.
Yes.
Yes. My trusts have got properties. My family trusts have got properties.
Do you not see those properties as your own properties?
No, but trust is a legal persona. It has got its own beneficiaries. It has got its own life. It's not my property. Because once I do that, I'm going to be conflicted. I can't claim. That's why I can't take a trust property to go and use it as surety in my own transaction. It has got its own trustees. It has got its own beneficiaries.